The President, please be seated. The trial chamber is now in session, and the floor is now given to the civil party lead co-lawyer to put question to the civil parties, and we inform you that the lead co-lawyer and the co-prosecutor have only 1 hour for this morning. Counsel Chonti, thank you, Mr. President. I'm from the Legal Aid of Cambodia. Your Honors and all parties in and around the courtroom and the media, and I will ask a number of questions to civil party report who is testifying before the trial chamber in this proceeding. I will divide my questions into 3 parts. So the first section on the exchange of Khmer people with the Vietnam, and also I would like to ask about the forced labor and also the execution of your relatives or siblings. In relation to the exchange of people, I would like you to tell the court, do you heard any information from the Vietnamese government? So what are the announcements by the government that lead you to come or to decide to return to Cambodia? Answer, Mr. President. At that time, I had no idea as to whether it was an exchange of people, but the Vietnamese government told us that the Khmer refugee who lived in their country, and now you will be exchanged Vietnamese people from Cambodia, and you will be returning to your country. Question. In Vietnam, when the Cambodian people fled to live in Vietnam, were you living in a camp, and what was your living condition like when you were there? Answer. As far as I know, when we are in Vietnam, we were called refugees. We were organized to live in camps for good management by the authority. And the U.S. government donated rice, medicine, and other food supplies for the refugees in those camps. We would have enough to eat. Counsel, thank you. So when the exchange program is going to implement it, was there any group of people who assign people or who select people into the list, were there any families refused to come, to return to Cambodia? Answer. There were some people who refused to return, and they continue to live there until today. Those who were there and who possessed the inhabitant rice paddy field and plantation, they decided to stay there, and they enjoy those properties, and they could stay there. Council, thank you. When the Khmer refugees were exchanged, did you witness the actual exchange, the Khmer people with the Vietnamese people? Where did this happen at the border checkpoint? Answer. It happened at the international checkpoint called Tunnel Dutch. It was previously called Tunnel Dutch checkpoints. And the Vietnamese people were sent back to their country for 3 days, and then the Khmer people were sent back to Cambodia later. The Vietnamese government would send the Khmer people to Cambodia after they receive their people first. Council, thank you. I would like you to tell the court another accounts when you returned to Cambodia in 1976. You were sent to a mobile unit. Where was your mobile unit, and what are you doing during that time? Answer. At the beginning, I was sent to Tnautrum village, Kok Trabai commune. I was sent to a mobile unit to work, and I was transferred to Kabal Po. It located to the south of Takeo province. We would do rice paddy farming and canal building, irrigation system construction. At our first arrival, we were so hungry. And sometimes we use bad word to the cooks, and we would blame those cooks. But the old people there warn us that don't do that, otherwise you will be taken away. Council, when you work in the mobile unit, so what were your working hours in the morning, in the afternoon? What were your living conditions? And were there any treatments when anyone falls sick during working or when you stay in the mobile unit? Answer. At Kabal Po, at the beginning, some people who were living in a better condition, and later after that, they fell sick. Some of them tried to flee, and 20 people who tried to flee, only one could flee. And during the labor work, and we would start early in the morning and would break at 11 for lunch. And later, they told us that don't worry about your lunch. You should pay your attention only your work. Sometimes we were made to work for 20 hours. We could have only 2 meals. And in the evening, we made to work without any breaks. And we were ordered to complete assignment before asking for meals. Counsel. Another important point you said earlier that I did not receive your response. So were there any treatments or medicines for the people who fell sick? So can you tell the court about that? Answer. Anyone who fell sick during the regime at my work site, and if he or she could eat, he or she would be accused of being infiltrator or enemy. So everyone dare not complain but try to work very hard. So there was no clinic, no treatment at Cambodia. Anyone who fell sick and try to sneak out to help one another in a booth and to do some scraping to help him getting better. Counsel, I would like you to tell the court what kind of medicines you received for a treatment. Is there any treatment at all or any medicine at all? Answer. In the youth unit, I don't think I see any medication or medicines for the sick people, because no one from my unit was sent to any clinic or any hospital. There were no treatment in any clinic or hospital. So anyone who fell sick or later die of starvation. It was a kind of a wheel of history, they call it. So if anyone who try to oppose or to block, you will lose your limbs for that. Counsel, thank you. President, Mr. Victor Koppe, you may proceed.
Thank you very much. Excuse me for interrupting. Would you please instruct Mr. President, the witness, to speak of the things that he actually saw himself or heard himself? The witness is continuously saying that anyone, everyone, etc. Just a reminder that he can only speak as to the events that he witnessed himself.
Counsel Lau Chunti. Thank you, Mr. President. In my previous question, I asked you that do you have any relative or cousin who were evacuated from Phnom Penh? Answer, yes, I have 2 uncles. During the evacuation, and then I heard that he died. He did a fishing, and he was accused of stealing a thing, His name is Sun Ngok, and I knew that after the liberation. Council, thank you. Were there any family members in your family that were evacuated to that area? Answer. During Pol Pot regime and the Khmer Rouge regime, I lost only one younger brother. When I arrived there, he was not even 1 year old. He was separated from us, and the old lady was assigned to take care of her children, and he was sent to be cared by those lady, and he died. Lord Chunti, thank you. I have my one last question. After 1979, you met the people who were returning from Vietnam, for example, 1,200 families. And after 1979, how many of them are still living, and how many of them disappear? Can you tell the court about that? Answer. As far as I observed, during the exchange of people, there were many people from my village. After the liberation, certain family lost several members, and the other case, the whole family lost, and they disappear. Maybe they suffer any inhuman treatment, but after the liberation, many people disappear. Council, thank you. Civil party. The President, thank you. The trial chamber give the floor to the co-prosecutor to put the question to the civil party. Prosecutor, thank you, Mr. President, Your Honors, and Mr. Civil Party. My name is Seng Liang. I'm the Deputy Co-Prosecutor of the OCP. I will ask you a number of questions. And my first question is, you said that when you arrived in Cambodia, you were sent to Pok Trabai commune. Is this correct? President, please wait until your microphone is activated, Civil Party. Respond, yes, this is correct. Prosecutor, can you tell the court the name of the chief of Pok Trabai commune? Answer. As far as I know, the commune chief during Pol Pot regime was Ta Chom. Question. In that area, did you hear the name of Tamok? President, please wait. Answer, yes, I heard. Tamok was a relative of Ta Chom. Who was Tamok? Question. Respond. He was called the sector secretary. Co-prosecutor, thank you. In your civil party application, the 20/2161 English 01047835 and Khmer EON 00546435 and French EON 010478338. You say that after you arrived in Tram Kak district, you were separated from your family and sent to work in a mobile unit, and I was forced to work very hard, including building canal and dam without any rest. End of quote. Can you tell a bit further to the court that when you are working there, so where were your work site during that time? Answer. During that regime, we would work at the sector or the region. So if we were sent to Kabal Po, for example, a number of villages in Kabal Po, we were sent to work from one place to another within that Kabal Po work site. Question. Was there a rice mill at Kabal Po work site where you worked there? Answer. During Pol Pot regime, there was a rice mill and all equipment to produce rice from paddy. Yes, of course. Question. Now I would like you to tell the court about the construction of dam or canal. So, how was your workload during every day and each day you did? Answer. I cannot calculate a specific assignment, but when we were in our unit, we have to respect the rule and continue to work without any rest. So if anyone who violated the rule, there will be punishment by increasing the workload, and he or she would be forced to work until he or she completed the assignment. Question. Was there any quota of workload for each member? The President, the Chamber has yet to rule, and then to the civil party that when you use he or they without any specific group of people or person, can you be specific when you say they? So you should be specific by person, by the member in any group or in a Khmer cadre unit. So co-prosecutor, could you be specific so that the civil party can respond correctly? So the term they should be replaced by a specific person, by group, or by title, for example. Prosecutor, thank you, Mr. President. Yes, I will reframe my question. They here refer to the chief of the mobile units who supervise the members. Did they set any quota for each member per day?
Answer. I'd like to apologize, Mr. President. And during the Khmer Rouge regime, we were called contemptible or in Khmer regardless of our age. And I cannot recall the names of the unit chiefs or other chiefs, and for that reason, sometimes I use the word they. President and Mr. Civil Party, please listen to the question carefully and only respond to the limit of the question. If you are asked about your unit chief, then only mention the unit chief. Or if they ask about the commune chief or village chief, please respond accordingly. And secondly, the question is about the term used is quota, or maybe it's a little bit difficult for you to understand. Maybe the simple word is the amount of a work that you were assigned at the time, or how many cubic meters, for example, that you have to complete per day. And to my understanding, the question is repetitive. As in his previous response, he said that he could not calculate the amount of work each day, and only those who were punished, then they would be assigned to carry 2 or 3 cubic meters per day. So the Deputy Co-Prosecutor, please rephrase your question so that the civil party can understand it and use and make it as simple as possible. Prosecutor, thank you, Mr. President. When you worked in your unit, were you allowed to leave the unit and to go anywhere freely as you wanted? Answer. At that time, when we were working at a work site, even if we had to relieve ourselves, we had to inform our group chief or unit chief to get their permission first. And if we were longer than usual, then we would be accused of having a psychological sickness. Question: what would happen if someone violated the rule? Was there any form of punishment? President, Civil Party, you do not need to respond to this hypothetical question. Prosecution, can you tell the chamber in your unit, was any member violated the rule by leaving or going anywhere without informing the unit chief? Answer. During the Khmer Rouge regime, we had to obey a saying that we had to follow the UNCAS organization. And without the permission from UNCAS, we would not dare go anywhere. Wherever we were assigned to work at, we had to be there. For example, within a limit of 100-meter land plot, then we could only move within that limit. Question. My question is, at the time, was any of a mobile unit violated the rule or the discipline? And if so, what happened to him or to her? Answer. At that time, everybody, including myself, tries to abide by the organizational discipline, and we did not dare to violate it, as we were afraid that we would be taken away and killed. So, nobody dares to walk freely or to violate the principles set out by the organization. Question. Based on your answer, previously you said that the food was not sufficient. Am I correct? President interrupt. The co-prosecutor, you need to allow the civil party to respond to your question first. And civil party, please wait for the microphone to be activated before you respond. Civil party, indeed, that is true. Answer. Did anybody make any protest of insufficient food? That is to make a protest through the upper organization? Answer. Allow me to say it again, Mr. President. At that time, nobody dared to protest. If anybody protested, then we would be accused of being an enemy at the cooperative, and that person would not be survived, and they would take a measure to take that person away secretly. Answer. A question rather. To your knowledge, was any of your unit members died from starvation? Answer. In my mobile unit at Oak Road, there were 2 members who died from starvation. However, they then said that they died of a faint. And in fact, there was a wound, infection on the leg, and it got worse because of the insufficient food. And because they were sick, they were not allowed to give any food, and later on they died. Question. Thank you. In the area during the Khmer Rouge regime, did you hear the term cooperative? Answer. During the Pol Pot regime, they established cooperatives, and I heard the term being used. Question. Did you know when cooperatives were established? Answer. I cannot say for sure which year they were established. However, when I returned to live, the cooperatives had already been established, namely Tnaut-Churum, or cooperatives for various units, including the 50-man unit or the 100-man unit. Question. Did you hear anyone talking about a model cooperative or a model district? Answer. No, I was not aware of that thing. Only probably the leadership level knew as which commune was model 1. For us, a common person, we would not be allowed to know about that. Co-prosecutor, Mr. President, for the transcript, I'd like to show a document that is E3/135, which entitled the Revolutionary Flag. It's the 6th edition of March 1977 at EN in Khmer 0006, Tran 793, 2793 through 94, and in English 004468 49 through 50, and French is 0048 710-211. And let me quote, free translation. The letter of handing the red flag to the youth, the combatants, and the cadres, and the peasants of Proso district. And in the bracket, the is zone, and for southwest zone it was for Tram Kok district. My question to you, Mr. Civil Party, is that did you know if there were any Khmer Rouge leaders come to visit your area? Answer. At the work site, I saw Tamok twice coming to visit. He came to inspect the work site. Question. Did you know which year did he make those 2 visits? President Civil Party, please wait for the microphone to be activated first. Answer. It was in 1977 when he came to Tropang Kol. Question. Besides Tamok, was there anyone else? President Civil Party, please wait for the microphone's activation first. Answer. There were unit chiefs of the districts of the communes who came with the Tamok. Question. Now I move on to another topic, that is the treatment of former Tribunal soldiers and civil servants. Can you tell us, amongst the people living in Tram Kok district during the Khmer Rouge regime, whether the Khmer Rouge tried to identify who were the former Tribunal soldiers or the civil servants? Answer. No, I was not aware of that. Question. Now I'd like to mention one document, and Mr. President, I'd like to hand a document to the Civil Party, that is a document in case 002/02. That is document E3/2917. EN in Khmer is 00079090, and English 00742890, and French 00810574. With your permission, Mr. President. President, yes, you may do so. Co-prosecutor, Mr. Civil Party, this document is a report through the district from Popel commune. And I'd like you to focus point number 1, which is circled in red for you, and allow me to read it to you. The Cambodia Crown people and the people that were exchanged by the Vietnamese were 64 households, and equivalent to 228 persons. And the date of this letter is in 1977. Can you tell the court whether that exchange was the second phase exchange that you mentioned earlier, or whether this exchange, for example, was the subsequent third or fourth exchange to your knowledge? Answer. President, please, Mr. Civil Party, wait for the microphone activation. Answer. After I arrived in Cambodia, and that was the first batch that I came along, and I did not know about the further batches of the exchange programs, and I didn't know when they were returned to Cambodia, because when we arrived in Cambodia, we were not allowed to move freely. Prosecutor, thank you, and due to time limit, I'll move on to my last question. Please refer to the second line, which is also highlighted in red, and allow me to read it to you. The military personnel families who were smashed by Angkar were 106, which were equivalent to 393 individuals. And my question here is focused on the military personnel. Do you know which military personnel did they specify? Did they refer to the former Lone Wolf soldiers, or did they refer to the actual Khmer Rouge soldiers? President Civil Party, please wait. And Councillor Kong Sam On, you have the floor. Kong Sam On, thank you, Mr. President. I'd like Mr. President to instruct the Deputy Co-Prosecutor to actually refer through the document again, because in the Khmer language it reads slap or die, and not samlap means killed in English. Thank you.
The witness doesn't know this document. I see no reason why he should be introduced to this document. At least we have to first establish whether he knows the document or has seen it before. So I object to this question.
Mr. President, just to complete the last objection of Mr. Koppe, but not only that, but there is no basis to explain why this document should be used, because the co-prosecutor put a question previously with regard to the civil party's knowledge of a policy with regard to the army, and he answered no. So I don't know why he's continuing with the same line of questioning, whereas the civil party already indicated that he knew nothing about this matter.
Deputy Co-Prosecutor, Mr. President, I'd like to respond to the concerns raised by my learned counsel. My question to the civil party is for him to clarify whether he learned about the military personnel during the Khmer Rouge, and whether they referred to which army. And because the document contains the word military personnel, and then I put the question right to the civil party. President, Mr. Civil Party, you do not need to respond to this question, and in fact he already responded as he was not aware of any issues with the former Lone Wolf soldiers. Deputy Co-Prosecutor. Thank you, Mr. President. I don't have any further question for this civil party, and I'd like to hand the floor to my international counterpart. Thank you.
ខ្ញុំសូមគោរពលោកប្រធាននិងលោក
Good morning, Mr. President, your honors, and good morning, Mr. Civil Party. I have some questions for you, and I will speak English. Thank you.
Mr. Civil Party, in your application and in the statement you gave to the investigators of the co-investigating judges, and in your testimony, you spoke about Pong Tuk village. You also, in your OCIJ statement, referred to Pretakap village, and the reference is E319.1.22, both at answers 24 and 38. Can you clarify, were you assigned to work both in Pong Tuk and Pretakap? Did you live in one place and work in the other? What was the situation?
At that time, I was transferred from Stung village to Samrao. Then I worked plowing the field and digging canals at Pong Tuk village. And in fact, Pong Tuk and Pretakha were adjacent to one another. And I was assigned to plow in the village and to dig canal and to carry earth at that location.
Thank you very much. How far were these two locations from Krang Tachan?
If I estimate it correctly, the distance is about 500 meters from Krang Tachan, or maybe 500 to 600 meters.
Thank you very much. I'd like to move on now to a different topic in the interests of time. Mr. Civil Party, do you consider yourself to be Khmer Kampuchea Krom?
Yes, my true identity is Khmer Kampuchea, but I lived near the border. I was born in Cambodia, but during the war, I fled to live in Vietnam.
Thank you very much. I would like now, Mr. President, with your leave, to show the Civil Party a document already admitted by your honours, E3/2428. This document lists 54 families identified as being from Kampuchea Krom, living in villages in Samrong commune, close to where the Civil Party has stated repeatedly that he lived. Village names Tasman, Panmia, Tasaum, Prekokia, Angtanget. And I would like, with your leave, Mr. President, to put the Khmer version of this document to the witness, to the Civil Party.
President, yes, you can proceed with that.
Mr. Civil Party, please take the time you need to review the contents of this document. When you have done so, please tell the court if you know any of the Khmer Krom people on this list.
The characters are too small. I have difficulty in reading them.
That's absolutely fine, thank you. You will see on the left-hand side names like Tat and Chow, which are family names, Chamut Trakol. Do you recognize these kinds of names?
Along the border at the time, and I don't refer only to the period of the Khmer Rouge, but to the period before that, people living along the border would use the family names Thach or Chow as their family names.
Thank you. You will see then the list lists 54 families, 13 families from Tasaum village, and 12 Khmer Krom families from Ang Tanget village. Do you remember whether these were villages that had many Khmer Krom families living in them at the time that you lived in Samrong commune?
Mr. President.
President Civil Party, please wait, and Councillor Kupay, you have the floor.
Mr. Witness, I object. How on earth does this poor witness have to answer a question like this? He can answer about his direct family, but he's been asked about 54 families, family members. This is an impossible question.
To respond, Mr. President, the Civil Party was a member of a mobile unit. He travelled around parts of Samrong commune. I've mentioned 2 villages that he may have gone through. Perhaps he can tell us if he knew the approximate number of Khmer Krom families living in those villages, if he knows in his personal knowledge.
President, the objection by the Defense Counsel is overruled, as the question is appropriate concerning the knowledge of the Civil Party who used to live in that area during the decade period. And Mr. Civil Party, please respond to the last question put to you by the International Co-Prosecutor. Civil Party. The names on the list, I cannot recall them. I only know those people who were my peers, that means of similar ages, and I didn't know about the rest. And sometimes when we went or we were assigned to various units, we were separated and not stayed together.
The list does mention 1 female from Pong Tuk village, where you stated you were. The name at number 26 on the list is given as Niang Srei. Do you remember her?
Allow me to repeat it again. At that time, men were separated from women, and we were put into different groups according to our age. For example, children will be grouped into the children's unit, and for the adults will be put into the adults group. And we could not live mingled together, so I would not know about other people.
That's clear. Thank you very much. My last question. You will see that the list divides the Khmer Krom families into 3 types that are called first type, second type, and third type. The expression used in Khmer is propiet timoi, tipi, tibai, propet. Did you, based on what you heard during that time, ever hear these three categories or types being used?
At that time, there were such divisions. That is the three groups, namely the Cambodia Crown, the 17 April people, and the Base people. People who left Phnom Penh will be put into that group, but then they will be separated into smaller units according to their age. And for example, younger people will be put into the younger group, and women will be separated from men. And then I would not know about other peoples in other units or groups.
Thank you very much. In the brief time that remains, I have two further short questions. In your statement to the Office of Co-Investigating Judges, once again, document E319.1.22 at answers 61 and 62, you state that in 1978 you witnessed a group of 30 Khmer Krom who were tied up, arrested, and marched towards Krang Tachan. Can you describe this incident briefly for the court?
Answer. When I was moved from Stung village to Pongtek village, at my arrival I saw, but I don't know where they were taken, and 30 people were arrested, tied up, and they were marched to the opposite direction when I was traveling, but I had no idea where they were sent to, as to whether they were killed or tortured. But later I learned that Krang Tachan is a killing field.
Do you recall, Mr. Civil Party, why they had been arrested?
Answer. At the time, people were divided into three types. Anyone who did any sabotage or commit any wrongdoing, or who refused to do work, the unit chief would accuse them, or the commune chief or the group chief accuse the person of yuan, or the puppet of the yuan, or the yuan enemy, and so on.
Investigating Judges, document E319.1.22 at answer 58, you stated that only 6 Khmer Krom persons, including yourself, survived the Khmer Rouge regime. I would like to ask you to clarify this. What did you mean when you said only 6 survivors? Were you referring to the group that was sent with you to Tram Kok in 1976? Were you referring to the number of people left in your commune at the end of the regime? Were you referring to another number? Can you please clarify what you meant by 6 survivors?
Answer. I would like to tell the President that the people who came from Vietnam and live with me in the area in Cambodia, and after the liberation, so those who were living in the same place with me, only 6 people survive and are still living in my neighborhood.
your responses. Thank you, Mr. President. That concludes my questioning.
The President, thank you. It is now appropriate for morning break until 1:30 this afternoon. Court officer, please work with the vessel for the civil party for his break during the lunch, and have him return to the courtroom at 1:30 to continue his testimony. Personnel security are instructed to bring Mr. Kilsonpon to the holding cell and have him back into this courtroom before 1:30. The court is adjourned for recess.